Libya and to undertake participation in one form or the other, the no-fly zone, as an option which is guaranteeing the civil societies and the peace within the peace of the Libyan people.
Very finally, I'm intrigued that you mentioned northern Iraq because, I mean, it seems as if that was the reason why you actually resigned from your position 20 years ago. And I have an excerpt from your resignation letter in November 1990, where you said that you resigned in frustration because you were dismayed to see that the Arab nation has been fragmented into a terrible and unprecedented degree by the events of the Gulf. That was after Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, rather. Do you believe that the Arab League is still as fragmented as it was when you resigned as ambassador?
No, I think under the leadership of the Secretary General at this moment, with the the unanimity of suspending Libya's government from the League, I think they have emboldened, and therefore there is no fragmentation as it was during that period when we couldn't find an Arab solution to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. At this moment, I think that fissure, that division, does not exist in the same manner as it existed before. And I think the Arab League must have realized that they have to have a reality of unity on this issue and being one of the instruments of implementing and enforcing the Chapter 7 requirements of the Security Council resolution. So I think there is a relative improvement in conflict resolution by the Arab League at this moment than when I was in the Arab League.
Okay. Interesting to hear your thoughts, sir, the former Arab League ambassador to the UN, Mr. Clovis Maqsood. Great pleasure, sir. Well, as the fighting in Libya intensifies, attention is now turning to the stockpile of weapons Gaddafi might have built up over 4 decades of rule. But as Tim Friend reports, fears over what the Libyan leader could have at his disposal may not match up with reality.
Showing off military might is a tradition Colonel Gaddafi was happy to fulfill. This was the 40th anniversary of the revolution in 2009. But now his weapons are being used in anger, and the key questions are: how much weaponry does he have? What is he likely to do with it? And can it be neutralized? Libya's military might looks very different on paper than it does on the ground. The Air Force is said to be made up of 18,000 personnel, more than 200 fighter aircraft and 35 attack helicopters. But 3 aircraft have already been lost in the current unrest, and the airworthiness of the remaining jets has been questioned. The Navy boasts 8,000 personnel and 2 submarines, but Western military analysts believe that the subs have long been abandoned. The Libyan army claims to have 50,000 soldiers, more than 2,200 battle tanks and 945 armoured personnel carriers. But military analysts believe that years of sanctions and overall neglect have rendered much of the army's equipment useless.
Like any autocratic country, Gaddafi has probably for years been exaggerating the size of his armed forces. On the other hand, I would also warn that his forces, the ones around him now, particularly the 32nd Brigade, led by his son Khamis, is probably the best equipped in the army. It's received Western equipment, contracts inked in recent years. It's received outside training. And so, despite the obsolescence of some weaponry, despite the poor servicing of some of his planes, he still retains the very best equipment as against the rebels.
So, the Libyan army may not have the strength that it claims, but there's still a significant force on the ground. Analysts say that Gaddafi has a loyalist brigade made up of 10,000 to 12,000 troops, and those forces are trying to block the advance of the opposition and maintain control in western Libya. The heavy presence of loyalist forces means that Gaddafi still retains a strong grip on the capital, Tripoli, the town of Sabha, and his hometown of Sirte. It's thought that Libya destroyed its entire stockpile of chemical weapons in 2004 as part of a rapprochement with the West. It does have deadly mustard gas stored at a secret desert location, but no longer has the capability to deliver it. Small comfort for the rebels as they battle for victory. Tim Friend, Al Jazeera.
Well, the United Nations is warning of a humanitarian crisis in Libya and on its borders, with the number of people trying to escape the violence rising rapidly. The UN says the refugee crisis has now passed 180,000. People have been pouring across the borders, with tens of thousands pouring into Egypt and Tunisia. Around 10,000 people have spent the night in tents at a temporary camp on the Tunisian side, and about 85% of those who crossed into Tunisia are Egyptian workers. James Bays has more on the situation in Ras Ajdir on the Libyan-Tunisian border.
The situation here at the border crossing has eased dramatically in the last few hours. Let me show you the situation here. This blue gate is the actual border. The other side is Libya. And if you look out there, there are still people waiting, but this area 24 hours ago was packed with people. We saw people being taken out of the crowd who'd collapsed. Some had been crushed by all of the people here. Others had suffered from dehydration and the stress of the last few days. Many of these people who've been trying to get out of Libya for over a week now. And obviously once they pass this border post, this gate, and get into Tunisia, their situation is much better. There is still a large number waiting in Tunisia to get on a ship or on a plane out of here. But on the Tunisian side, they have the help of Tunisian aid agencies, also international organizations, the EU, the UN, UNHCR. They have set up a tented camp on this side of the border. So obviously that means the situation for the people once they cross the frontier is far better. And I think the emergency here is beginning to ease.
A gunman has attacked a bus carrying U.S. servicemen outside Frankfurt International Airport, killing 2 men. The U.S. Air Force servicemen were on their way home from Germany when the bus came under fire. Authorities say the gunman was a 21-year-old Kosovan living in the city. Sylvia Lennon has more.
The attack took place inside a bus at one of Europe's busiest airports. A lone gunman got inside the vehicle carrying U.S. military personnel. Then he shot at several passengers just as it pulled into the terminal. 1 soldier and the bus driver were killed.
I would like to express how upset I am. The German government will do everything to find out what happened. I would like to express my condolences to the American soldiers and their families and relatives. It's a terrible tragedy.
Police have arrested 1 suspect. In a surprise appearance in the White House briefing room, the US President Barack Obama was quick to respond, saying he's saddened and outraged by the attack.
We will spare no effort in learning how this outrageous act took place and in working with German authorities to ensure that all of the perpetrators are brought to justice.
The German regional interior minister says the man being blamed for the attack is from Kosovo, but doesn't specify if he was a soldier or what the motivation could be.
We're
investigating all possibilities. Whether there is a terrorist background, a jihadist background or an Islamic background, I cannot say at all right now. Our investigations will reveal that, as well as what the